Welcome to What's Cooking with the Cookware and Bakeware Alliance. The CBA supplies the industry with standards, connections, and solutions. This podcast features stories from our members and partners. Our goal is to share resources and information across the industry for consumers, retailers, manufacturers, and more. To learn more about becoming a member of the CBA, visit cookwareandbakeware.org. Hi there, Gayla Scrivener here, producer of the What's Cooking with the CBA podcast. So glad you're joining us today. June 1922 was the official formation of the association we now know as the Cookware and Bakeware Alliance. 2022 marks the new name, a new look, and new member benefits to continue its long-standing mission on supplying the industry with standards, connections, and solutions. We are currently in the midst of a year-long 100th anniversary celebration. The Alliance wouldn't be here today without the hard work of its members, the board, and managing directors. Today, your host and current managing director of the CBA, Fran Groesbeck, has a conversation with former managing director, Hugh Rushing. Hugh shares more into the details of the history of the CBA, as well as an inside perspective of his 25-year experience in his leadership role with the CBA. A side note here, you'll hear many references to the CMA, which until January, the CBA was known as the Cookware Manufacturers Association. By understanding its history and hearing the events and perspectives that shaped the association, you can truly appreciate the longevity and look forward to how the future of the industry will evolve in a collaborative manner. Well, without further ado, here's Fran and Hugh.
So thank you for joining me today, Hugh.
Great to be here with you, Fran.
I'm so excited to have you here. And I am in my career, I credit with a few people, and you're one of them. And I love this industry of the passion because of what the CMA helped me do in kicking off my career in cookware. I had wished at the time I got glassware. And then when they gave me cookware, I said, okay, I'll give it a try. And I fell in love and been with it ever since. So I'd love to know more about your background and how you got involved with the CMA.
Well, the company I worked for, which was Birmingham Stove and Range, was a member of the CMA beginning in the mid-1980s. We accepted the invitation to join the association. Went, I think, to my first meeting in 1986, which is, I remember it was in Longboat Key, Florida, and met everyone. And fast forward 2 or 3 years, I served on the Engineering Standards Committee, was a member of the Credit Committee, and also served on the Statistics Committee as well, because I was interested in all of that. And it was interesting in, I guess it was 1991 at one of the houseware show. There used to be two then, one in the spring and one in the winter and one in the middle of the year. Paul Itzman, who was the current executive vice president, as the title was at that time, walked up to me at the show and said, I'm getting ready to retire in a year or so. Would you be interested in running the CMA? And I said, well, gosh, I ought to think about that. So I thought about that. And so I expressed an interest in that. I don't know, there were some people on the board wanted to merge us with some other trade association. Some people thought that the IHA could take over the statistics part. So there was an approach there, and someone suggested that an accounting firm could do statistics, and that's what really people wanted. Then they got the quote from the accounting firm and they went, oh, I think. So anyway, long story short, the early houseware show in 1992, I packed up and drove to Chicago. At the end of the show, I kept on driving north up to Lake Geneva, where the offices were then, found me a motel for a few nights and then rented an apartment, and essentially spent 3 months training to be the successor to Paul Itzman. I tell people that I understand winter in Wisconsin because I spent one there and I did not have a garage.
Wow. Now, I know you live in Alabama now. Were you originally born and raised in Alabama?
I was born in Birmingham, but I was raised in Mobile. I saw snow perhaps 3 times in my childhood.
That's some
Each time it
difference.
lasted for less than an hour.
In 3 months in Wisconsin, that's a big
Yeah,
difference.
well, one of the things I bought in Wisconsin was a heavy duty scraper and a little plastic snow shovel so I could dig my way out early in the morning.
Snow has its definite challenges. I'm a girl of the Northeast, so I've seen my share of snow.
Well, I came home and told people that even poor people in Wisconsin had a garage, and I didn't have a garage.
It's funny you say that because we didn't have a lot of money growing up, but we had a garage to put our cars away.
Oh, yeah.
So you were with the CMA for quite a while.
I think it was 25 years from 1992, and I retired at the end of June in 2016. So that's 16 and 8's 24, 24 years.
Wow, that's incredible. You know, you shared with me once a document on the history of the CMA, and I've been reading it recently because with approaching the celebration. I learned in the document that it was June 1922. So it really is our 100th anniversary, and it's perfect timing. That's why we chose to kick off the celebration with the May meeting, because then June's the official real beginning of the celebration. In your opinion, that first start, why was this even started? Why was our group put together? It said 27 companies came together. What made them do this?
Well, here's what happened at the end of World War I. Germany, under the Treaty of Versailles, had to essentially dismantle all of its military industry. And a huge part of that industry was the manufacture of aluminum parts that went into dirigibles, rigid airships. Everybody remembers the Blitz in World War II in London. What they don't know was that London was bombed in World War I by dirigibles that floated off from Germany and flew over London and dropped bombs. So the people in Germany started using their aluminum capabilities to produce cookware. And essentially, they could import it into the United States without any sort of tariff at all, or a very modest tariff. And there was the race to the bottom, who could make the thinnest, cheapest aluminum cookware and send it to the United States. This was a real sea change. Up to this time, most people used cast iron or porcelain on steel cookware. There was a modest amount of aluminum cookware. Most of it centered in Ohio and in Wisconsin. So anyway, this stuff was essentially being dumped into the United States, and it did not hurt the industry that the Secretary of the Treasury was Mr. Mellon, and whose family owned substantial amounts of stock in Aluminum Corporation of America. So the association was formed. It lobbied Congress, and within a very rapid time, a very large anti-dumping duty was assessed on German-produced cookware. And so essentially the CMA at that time was called the Aluminum Wares Manufacturers Association, was basically set up to stop imports from Germany that were being dumped into the United States. At the same time, they realized that there needed to be certain standards as far as thickness was concerned in order to make a decent pan that would perform well. A really thin aluminum pan had problems with hot spots. It did not heat evenly. And it was giving the whole aluminum industry a bad rap, a bad name, I think. And so that's how it really got started. It got busy drawing up standards. By about 1930. There were standards in place for minimum gauges. They standardized the sizes. You know, one time somebody might make an 8-inch skillet, somebody would make a 9-inch skillet, and somebody make an 8.5-inch skillet. And you couldn't really compare on a shelf if you were buying the same thing or something different.
It's incredible to think of a time when there weren't standards, and to think about thin aluminum on a stovetop and the potential dangers that were there. Really, the mission, what we set out to do and started to do in the 30s, we're still doing today with setting standards. So the 30s saw the start of the standards. What were the next few years like? I saw some great stories, 40s, 50s. We changed our name a few times too in there.
That's true. That's true. Well, by the 1930s, aluminum cookware was really starting to truly dominate the cookware market. But as war clouds started out over Europe, this is funny. The CMA had a fall members meeting, which was held at Alcoa's rustic mountain camp in Alcoa, Tennessee. And they took the members of the association out and showed them these thousands of tons of aluminum that they had stockpiled. And they assured the manufacturers of cookware that even if war were to come, there would be so much aluminum that they would never worry about having a shortage of aluminum to produce their wares. And of course, I think December the 8th, the day after Pearl Harbor, aluminum went on allocation. I think it actually was before that. But anyway, aluminum was allocated, and everybody that was in the cookware business went to making mess kits, and they were still working in aluminum, mess kits, canteens. It was all war production.
Incredible. And then we saw continued growth in our industry. I saw that in the report, in the 50s and 60s, we saw numbers increasing, the industry increasing. I think 70s was when one of our name changes happened with the income of the microwave. We saw it was more about all cookware.
Mm-hmm. First, it was the Metal Cookware Manufacturers Association. And this was in the 50s or late 50s when stainless steel started to appear. Stainless steel was almost unknown before World War II, but stainless steel came out in the 50s and made a strong stand. So the expansion was for that. As you mentioned, of course, then the microwave came, which produced a sense of panic, I suppose, in the industry to think that nobody was going to be able to, because they didn't think you could put metal into a microwave. They were concerned that plastic was going to take over the cookware world. And of course, lo and behold, all these years later, most people still use their microwave to pop their popcorn and cook their bacon rapidly and heat up their leftovers. Not many people cook their turkey at Thanksgiving in the microwave.
No, and we've seen that with so many categories that come out. You get that moment of, what's this going to do? And then it finds its niche, right? It finds its spot. Hard anodized did that in the 90s, right? Everybody didn't know what was going to happen with that category. It's still here today, and it carved its spot. I will tell you something really interesting about the historical doc that I found. So throughout my career, I've watched us face, as an industry, issues from aluminum to nickel to current, chemical issues on legislation. It's been there the whole time. There was a great story in here about a gentleman who wrote an article about the danger of these aluminum pie dishes after someone used fresh ingredients and left it out for 10 hours on the counter.
That was the famous Toledo dentist that had a pamphlet that he was sort of the Dr. Mercola of the day, I think. He wanted to know why somebody suffered poisoning after eating their custard that was made in aluminum. And of course, they'd left the custard out. The eggs were probably contaminated.
Food spoiling.
So we fought that too. We fought that all along. I mean, we were always answering, first of all, the questions about, quote, aluminum poisoning. And when I was closely involved with the association, we still had aluminum causes Alzheimer's disease, and people with Alzheimer's disease have aluminum in their bodies and in their brains, and it turns out that there's no causal link has ever been. Even the Alzheimer's Association would say it, but we still fought that all the time. And, unfortunately, sometimes when you would track it back, you would find out that it was somewhere at the bottom of the mystery pile was somebody selling a different type of cookware than aluminum. And the first thing they did was claim that everybody's aluminum cookware was going to turn them into a drooling old person if they didn't buy their new cookware. So not always, but that happened more often than you can imagine.
I remember contacting you because when I started my time at Macy's, I did get that question even at that time. And it was my first experience with the CMA. And from there, the tools like the Cookware and Bakeware Guide, the education, being able to call you, and I know I did it a lot, asking questions about product, makes you a stronger product person. It makes you develop better, safer products. And I love that has only grown with us. And those stories in this that I read about, and there was other misinformation out there on aluminum and tea kettles. And like you said, always at the bottom, there was some other motive driving those. But we continue to focus on that education today. We have a big program right now focused around a a hot topic in the industry. I love that all the things I kept reading, we just have been carried on over the years. Education and information is a powerful tool. And that's, one of the things we stand for. As I was thinking about all this, it started to make me laugh at and think about some great memories and funny stories of being at member meetings and different things that have happened. I'd love to ask you if you have any top memories or funny stories you'd love to share that you've encountered over the years. I'll give you one of mine, for example. He's probably going to hate me for repeating this, but I finally became a member rep for Whitford, which was the company I worked for that was the CMA member. And I'm sitting at the bar after our dinner, and I'm having this great chat about hockey with this really funny, wonderful man. Turns out to be Bill Grohl of Allclad. And when I realized it was Bill Grohl, I was so shell-shocked because I've known these names. I heard these names. It was the same when I met Henry Lodge, and I didn't know who I was talking to. And when you find out you get to meet these people, they were just so down to earth, and they've become friends, not just other members of the CBA. I'm sure you have tons of stories like that. And yes, I did geek out when I met Henry Lodge. But
I think the one story that I remember had to do with standards. We had a president at the time, and I won't mention any names, but he challenged me. He said he was having trouble discerning which nonstick coating to use on his product. And he was, of course, everybody said, well, we've got this test that proves our product is best. And another company would come in and say, well, whoa, there we have a better test than that, and it proves our product is best. So he challenged me. He said, we ought to be able to come up with a standardized battery of tests so a manufacturer could reach a logical conclusion about what sort of product quality they wanted versus price, et cetera, et cetera. I really struggled with that. And, the people that were in the nonstick industry, of course, said, well, tell us what test you want to use, and we can design the product to be superior for that test. Well, of course, we ended up designing a whole battery of tests that did a lot of different things. But I remember getting the engineering standards committee in a room in Chicago and fed them breakfast and said, we're not leaving here until we come to some sort of agreement on this, because it's about to drive me bananas. So, and one of the simplest tests ended up being take a block of wood, wrap it in cheesecloth, put it on a thing that you can measure the angle, and start cranking it up and note at what angle the block begins to slide down. And that was step number one. Of course, there were a lot more that went along with that. But when we completed that project and that whole section of the engineering standards, I felt really, really good about the industry coming together and doing something that I think still to this day is of great value to the members. They can make informed decisions.
Sometimes the challenges are the best rewards, right? And
that's true.
What you described, I'm not sure many people realize. And I've had two different board members make a comment that really stuck with me. When I first came on board, Chris Welch was with us, and he said what he loved about the CMA, or now the CBA, is that gave you a safe space to address these concerns about the industry. So everybody came together. Yes, we're competitors, or they're competitors, the members, but they kind of hang that at the door and focus on how do we come together to make the right decision for the industry. Another board member who I admire greatly, Jean Carlson, recently said healthy competition. And I love that. All good people, and I'm not saying non-members aren't good people, but those who are in the CBA, they've stepped up to say, we want to be part of this and create the standards, create the programs that help make safe products that are measurable across the board. And that room you described with those engineering standards teams, you're talking about people from all different companies coming together to create that, especially you get all the nonstick guys in one room. Like, it's a powerful.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I had a board member one time say to me, I hate to miss an order. I hate to lose an order, or I hate to lose a customer. But if I lose a customer, to a member of the CBA now. He said, at least I know that product is probably a good product and the company is standing behind it and the customer won't go wrong. He said, I hate to lose it to somebody that won't participate in the association's activities, because I always feel like that's just one way they're trying to, slip around and not do the right thing. So
when I get those Ask the Expert questions from consumers asking me which cookware to buy, I say buy from a CBA member, because those are the ones I can speak to. I know are, using the standards, engaged in the process. We hold our engineering standards calls every other week. And I wish I could share. It's not one or two companies. And obviously people have their full-time jobs, but yet I get a great attendance every call and in some cases I've had every representative from every member on some of these calls. And it's just a powerful statement. This is voluntary. This is voluntary that they give their time like this. I even had a marketing group step up when we were looking at the name change and help with that. It's just an incredible experience to watch. I've loved this industry since I came into it, and I just love it even more now, what I've gotten to see through the Alliance. I'd love to wrap up here if you wanted to just share any other last statements about your experience with the CMA, or any message you want to send to the members listening to this message.
Well, I think the association, the Alliance, should congratulate itself in being willing to be fluid enough to make changes when it was necessary, and not be hidebound. That was one thing that I felt like I helped us do in my tenure. When I first joined the association, it was very much a Buy American outfit. And one of the first meetings I went to, Hank Reed, who had worked for Miro Company, had gone to work for TFAL, and he was invited as a guest to a CMA meeting. And in fact, it was the first meeting that I went to. TFAL wasn't very big then, but boy, it was a stinker. I mean, there was a really kind of violent discussion about, with the gentleman in the room, about whether he should stay in the room while we conducted the association's business. And I thought, wow, this is serious sort of stuff, I guess. But, that changed over time. So I salute the Alliance for being flexible and adaptable. It's a whole different world now than it was 35, 40 years ago in our industry. But yet our industry, I think, is thrived because of it, and is thrived partly because the Alliance, the association, was there to do the good work that it does.
I agree 1,000%. And I'm honored to be the one to try to keep this going.
Well, I think it's in very good hands, Fran. I really do. And I'm so happy that you are now managing director.
So I have to just go back to where we started. I thank you. From when I started, it was you and John Badner who answered my questions incessantly. And I know. And I realized the power and importance of having the right information during that time. And I'm forever grateful. I love telling people that I'm doing what I majored in, but a big part of it was meeting the right people along the way. And you and the CMA were a big part of that. So thank you.
You're welcome.
You've been listening to What's Cooking with the Cookware and Bakeware Alliance. For more resources about the cookware and bakeware industry and information about becoming a member, visit our website, cookwareandbakeware.org.